Bill Gates said that most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and they underestimate what they can do in a decade. That same principle, though, can be scaled down. Most people underestimate what they can do in 1 year and they overestimate what they can do in a single day. Most people, they try to do so much in one day and it leads them to constantly feeling like failures. They've got like 50 things on their to-do list. They're burning themselves out they're overly stimulated. They're not sleeping well, and ultimately that leads to poor performance. If you're not trying to like take over the world in one day, and instead you realize, look, if I can get into a consistent pattern, a consistent system, a consistent routine, I can just make powerful progress on a daily basis, then I can stop, recover, let it go, because I'm playing the long game. If you play the long game and are consistent for a long period of time, you're going to have huge compounding effects. And so rather than trying to overestimate what you can do in a single day, get really good at finding that sweet spot. Apply the 80-20 principle. 80% of results come from 20% of what you do. Don't have 50 things on your daily to-do list. Have like 2 or 3 really important things, important and not urgent. Wake up, get to your important activities, eat the frog, as they would say, put the worst first, and knock those things out. Get yourself like 2 to 4 or 5 hours of really good flow, then just fully recover and allow yourself to enjoy your life. If you try to accomplish too much in one day, then you're probably short-term thinking. If you have a long-term vision and a long-term plan and you're playing the long game, which means you're playing your own game, you've set your own game, you're excited about that game, then you can really get deep into the process. Then you can get deep into doing what you want to do and stop trying to prove yourself to others. Stop trying to get to the next level. You can play your own game right now. So here's the basics of how to do it. Jim Collins, the author of Good to Great, said that if you have more than 3 priorities, you have none. First off, you set the long-term vision. What is the game you're actually playing? And then from there, you just get into a rhythm of finding the sweet spot of how much you can do in a single day. And then once you're done, just let it go. Be done. Psychologically detached from work. There's a lot of research on this. You want to psychologically detach from work, meaning you're comfortable walking away. Even the author Ernest Hemingway would walk away mid-sentence. He didn't need to finish that sentence. He would write for a period of time, and then he would end midway through a sentence so that he left himself a space to start tomorrow. Tomorrow, he could come, and he's already halfway through the sentence, so he can make it an easy, quick win and get momentum for tomorrow. Give yourself permission to celebrate and to walk away. You've done the 2 to 4 or 5 flow-based, focused hours. You've knocked out the 2 to 3 things that really matter today. Now go, recover, enjoy your life so that you're in the joy of the process, in the joy of your long game. You're here. You're not trying to be there. You're just enjoying where you're at. You know you're playing the game. If you have a long-term game, there's no competition against you because you're not trying to force it. That doesn't mean you're not making aggressive action. It doesn't mean you're not taking bold leaps towards your future self. It doesn't mean you're not being courageous. But if you're trying too hard to take over the world today, what that means is that you don't actually have a long-term vision. You can have a long-term vision. You can be hyper-aggressive. You can be courageous. You can make power moves today. But you can also live to fight another day. You can walk away and say, I know that if I have 5 really good days this week, that's better than having 1 insane day and then 4 days of being busted and broken. If you're trying too hard to knock out too much in the short term, that may probably lead you to really unhealthy mechanisms for doing that, whether that be like drugs or who knows what you'll do to try to create some fast result. But if you're playing the long game, and if you're playing your own game, and if you're no longer competing with other people, if you're what psychologists would call self-determined, and if you're intrinsically motivated, meaning you love your path, you know that your future self is bigger than you. You're actively preparing and creating your future self, but you're also really happy with where you're at. You're enjoying the process. You're failing forward and measuring backward, as some people would say. Then you can rock today out. You can be in flow. You can make meaningful progress towards your future self, and then you can be satisfied. You can walk away and you can say, tomorrow's going to be amazing as well. And then you can get consistent at creating very powerful, very important progress on a daily basis. 2 to 3 key outcomes. It could be if you're a writer, writing for 2 to 4 hours on that book in complete flow, no distractions, and then you walk away. Or you send a few key emails to potential collaborators. You do a few things. You measure your progress backwards, meaning you're reflecting on the progress you've made and you're enjoying and appreciating that progress. And then you set the big 3 for the next day. And then consistently over time, you're making the right moves. You're allowing yourself to recover. You're feeling joy in the process. You're running your own long-term race, which you're super excited about. You're not worried about anyone else. You're not trying to prove yourself to anyone else. You know that if you stick with this, and obviously you'll improve and you'll adapt your process along the way, but because you're playing such a long game and because you're doing it consistently rather than all crazy, you know how the compound effect works. You know that in the next few years, you're going to be skyrocketing exponentially. That's exactly what Kobe Bryant said, by the way. Kobe Bryant, in an interview with Lewis Howes, talked, and this was probably a year before he passed away, he talked about how his first year playing basketball, he was like 11 years old. He was horrible. He didn't make a single shot. But his dad told him that Kobe, whether you score 0 points or 60, I'm still going to love you. And then Kobe, what he realized from that is that he had the security to fail. He had the security to try, and that his dad would still love him. And that's when he started to take the long-term game. He started to really say, okay, I'm committed to this for the long haul. I don't need to try to prove myself to my dad. I don't need to try to get quick victories because I'm inadequate or insecure. I'm going to choose the game I want to play, and I'm going to master that game. And so once he felt secure in himself, he then set a long-term game. And when you have a long-term game, then you can really commit to a pure process. Then you can commit to actually getting really good at the fundamentals. You can get good at making the right progress rather than trying to force things. It's that whole difference between power versus force. If you've got the long game, if you're playing your own game, then you're no longer competing with anyone else. Then you're no longer trying to prove yourself to anyone else. Then you can enjoy where you're at. You can also make the furthest progress. You can be courageous. You can try to boldly attempt things, and you're fine failing yourself forward and then measuring yourself backwards against where you were before to see your own progress. So that's the challenge, is play the long game and then on a daily basis make massive, meaningful progress in a sustainable way, which then the compound effect over time takes over. If you're trying too hard to accomplish so much in a short period of time, I've got to ask you why. What is your motivation for that? Is it because you're insecure in yourself? Is it because you're trying to prove yourself? Is it because you don't really like yourself? If you're trying so hard to get to the next stage of your life, rather than really deciding what this one's all about, what's that for? If you're always trying to get to next, then you're never going to actually be anywhere. You're never going to be here, and it doesn't matter what that next milestone is, you're never going to actually be there. You're always going to be wanting the next thing, trying to prove yourself, and really what that proves is that there's a gaping hole inside of you, and a hole of knowing yourself, of deciding for yourself what success means to you, of running your own race, of enjoying your life, of focusing on what matters most. Set the long-term vision, get into a rhythm and a routine of being in flow, of putting the important before the urgent, of having 1, 2, or 3 major important things that you're trying to accomplish on a daily basis. Give yourself 2, 4, 5, even 6, 7 hours of flow, whatever you want. Research shows that the most productive countries in the world actually usually work less. They're usually working 4 to 6 hours a day, but that's focused, flow-based, important, intelligent work. It's not the busyness of just reactively responding to things or being distracted 90% of the time like most people. It's no. You sat down, you were in flow, you focused, you knocked out the things you planned to do, and then you were happy and you were comfortable and you walked away. And you went and recovered and you enjoyed your life. And then you lived to fight another day. You're going to come back and you're going to be there again. That's what Steven Pressfield would call a pro. Someone who's playing the long game. Someone who comes to work every day and they just crush it. They just do their job and they leave. They don't need to take over the world in one day. They're playing the long game and they know that they can get somewhere very far over the long term. That doesn't mean you're not making hyper-aggressive growth within the umbrella of your long-term vision. But that long-term vision removes the unnecessary anxiety. It also removes you having to prove yourself to anyone else. It also allows you to lay the better track and to love the process and to get deep into the right process, which is to do what you really need to do to become a master of your craft, mastery orientation, rather than overly obsessing on externals and proving yourself to others. So don't try to accomplish too much in one day. Know that you can accomplish way more than you think in a year if you're consistent and if you're applying the compound effect. And if you're having consistent days, weeks, months where you're in flow, focused on the right things, knocking out the right things, and then fully recovering, then you're never burning out. You're loving your life. You're never burning out. You're in flow. You're in joy. You're happy with where you're at, yet you know your future self keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Every day is an investment in your future self. You don't need to burn it all down today. I'm Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Here's the next video that can help you become your best future self. Please like this video. Please push the thumbs up button. Please subscribe to this channel. And also down below, you can get access to my free peak state checklist. It's been downloaded by over 800,000 people, and it will help you get into a peak state first thing in the morning. Have an amazing day.